It's just yesterday, though. So welcome. We have a relatively light agenda this morning. I think Christine's going to try to cover some things that we did not get to in our October meeting. And we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to call the attendance. Just say aye or here when I call your name. Dr. Bernard, he was not able to join us, right? Okay. Caitlin Brooks. Pam Cashwell.
Here.
Danielle Carmen.
Here.
Judge Elliott. I don't think Judge Elliott is here.
No.
Tammy Harris. I thought I saw.
Here.
Oh, there you are. Judge Hill. Judge Hill, you're here, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Dina Joy.
I'm here.
Jasmine McGee.
Here.
Mark Nichols. He's Caitlin Ryland.
I'm here. I'm going to log off and log back on, so hopefully it will fix my video.
Okay. Suzanne Smith.
Here.
DA West. I don't think so. And Angelica Wind.
Here.
All right. Thank you. Okay, I have several things that I just need to procedurally read through quickly. The first is our ethics reminder that I read at the beginning of every meeting. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every North Carolina Human Trafficking Commission member to avoid conflicts of interest. If any Human Trafficking Commission member has any known conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before the Commission today, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter involved. And in keeping with that ethics statement, I just need to read in for the record that we have received a conflict of interest statement on two of our members. We have one for Dr. Bernard, and I'm just going to read what the letter, just a little part of what the letter says. Again, for Dr. Bernard, we did not find an actual conflict of interest, but found the potential for a conflict of interest. The potential conflict identified does not prohibit service on this entity. Christine, do you think I'm good with just reading that statement?
That is what we've done. Danielle, no, Pam, whole thing.
You need to read what the conflict is, what the potential conflict is.
Okay. Dr. Bernard fills the role of a healthcare representative on the commission. He's a physician with Wake Emergency Physicians, PA, and an authorized officer for the lobbyist principal, North Carolina College of Emergency Physicians. Dr. Bernard's spouse is the founder and executive director of SHIELD North Carolina, an anti-human trafficking organization. Because the commission seeks and awards grant funding, Dr. Bernard has the potential for a conflict of interest. Accordingly, Dr. Bernard should exercise appropriate caution in the performance of his public duties should issues involving SHIELD North Carolina come before the commission for official action. This includes abstaining from taking any action where his spouse's employment influences or could reasonably appear to influence his performance of official actions or his participation in an official action by the commission. Okay. And our second one is for Angelica Wind, and this is from the State Ethics Commission letter. We did not find an actual conflict of interest, but found the potential for a conflict of interest. The potential conflict identified does not prohibit service on this entity. Ms. Wind fills the role of a representative of the North Carolina Coalition Against Human Trafficking. She is the executive director of Our Voice, Inc., a nonprofit and advocate for victims of sexual violence. In addition, Ms. Wind serves on the North Carolina Coalition Against Sexual Assault Board of Directors. Therefore, Ms. Wind has the potential for a conflict of interest and should exercise appropriate caution in the performance of her duties and should issues involving these entities come before the Commission for official action. Okay. The next thing I have, Christine passed this along to me and suggested that this would be a good thing to read to the Commission, just in consideration of where we are as far as having public meetings in this virtual forum. So I'm just going to read through these public meeting reminders. At the start of each remote meeting during a declared state of emergency, we encourage the chair of the public body to share the following information. In accordance with open meeting laws, this meeting's video and audio are being live streamed to the public on the Commission's website. This meeting is being recorded. Any member of the body who is participating in the meeting and who elects not to have their video on must identify themselves prior to any of the following situations. When roll is taken or the remote meeting is commenced, prior to participating in the deliberations, including making motions, proposing amendments, and raising points of order, and prior to voting. All votes must be by roll call. All chats between members and staff are considered a public record. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay.
Yes.
And the next thing on the agenda is approving our minutes from the October 22nd meeting. Christine sent those out in our meeting packet. Does anyone have any changes or additions to the October minutes?
Jennifer, I don't have any changes or amendments, but I was not at the meeting, so I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Okay, got it.
Same. This is Jasmine.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have nothing to add or take away, so I would make a motion with no objections to pass the minutes.
Okay, thanks. Mark makes a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second, Billy West.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Dr. Bernard? Not here. Caitlin Brooks? We're approving the minutes.
Okay, yes.
Okay, Pam, you're abstaining. Tammy Harris?
Approve.
Dina Joy?
Approve.
Mark Nichols?
Approve.
Caitlin Ryland?
Approve.
Suzanne Smith?
Approve.
DA West?
Approve.
Angelica Wins?
Approved.
Okay, thank you. The minutes are approved unanimously. All right, now that we have gotten through all of those administrative items, we will move on to the more exciting part of the agenda. We have our committee reports and action items, and the first committee up is Caitlin Brooks from the Legislative Committee, who I know has been hard at work. Caitlin, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. So we have, we're still not where I would like us to be with having something finalized, but that's kind of how it goes, right? You know, a couple steps forward, a couple steps back. Our last meeting was November 5th. Before I forget, our next meeting will be January 21st, 10 to 11:30. So we've been having some good discussions about what we would like our legislative agenda to be when session starts. And we have preliminarily the document that Christine sent out, and it has our 3 items that we'll be looking at. And then it also has a 1-pager. I'll start with the 1-pager because I think it's the easiest. The committee has looked at it. The goal of it would be just to have everybody on the same page. And if you do happen to meet with legislators, you can quickly look at this. It'll give you kind of some quick snapshots and allow you to be knowledgeable if and when you face that circumstance. We would love for you to be talking to the legislators, as I think it's going to be an uphill battle this coming session. So that's kind of what it is. It just breaks down some facts that you can, quickly talk about if you would like to. The big thing on it is what we are going to be asking for in the budget. And Christine, if there's a way that we can share that little spreadsheet you did for the 500,000, absent anybody feeling really strongly, I think what I would like to do is I'd like to go in and start with 500. Christine has laid out where all of that would go. I think it's, I realized the last 2 budgets that we were in before the stalemate and then COVID hit, the request was 250, but I think that would allow us to barely operate. And 500 seems to be very reasonable with when you look at the spreadsheet where all the funding would go. So that's the big thing on that. Jennifer, do you have any you'd like to add to that?
No, I think 500,000 is a very reasonable request, and I've actually been encouraged in the past week or so, my impression is that the state budget situation may not be quite as dire as we thought. We still have quite a large unreserved pot of money that has been unspent. I think North Carolina is rather fortunate kind of in where we are. It's just not as bleak and as dire as I think it could have been.
Okay. The 500 would be just for us to have funding for staffing. And Christine, I didn't actually, did it show? Did everyone, I didn't see it.
I saw it. It was a little blurry, but I saw it and was
Okay.
able to decipher it.
If anyone wants to see that, I'm sure we can send it out
Christine,
after the meeting.
Could you put it back up on the screen just for a minute?
I can, yes. It was giving me messages. Actually, it was kind of cutting in and out a lot and gave me messages that the resolution wasn't good.
Okay.
Let me share it again and okay. Are you seeing it?
I'm seeing it.
Good.
Can you make it bigger? That's okay. Perfect.
Christine, I'm still not seeing it. So if anyone wants to, I know what it looks like though. So if anybody cannot see it on the screen, we can send it out after the meeting if you're interested.
I think that would help us. And I need your guidance on that, Caitlin. Would you like for us to share this with anyone, our legislators, to help in your efforts, or how do you want us to just to have the knowledge? Okay.
Yes, I think so. I think it's helpful. And if you get in a situation where they're saying like to do more, we certainly have justification for additional funds. And I can put, if that would be helpful, I can put all of that on one sheet of paper so you could quickly look at it if you need it. But like continuing to run the social media campaign, wanted to continue to do that next year. We have numbers for that the folks. So,
Okay.
do you think that would be helpful to have it all in one place?
Yes, one shooter would be great. It's easier for me to push that along.
Yeah, okay. I can do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's going to be the main thing that we're working towards. Of course, we've got to have recurring funding for the commission. But in addition to that, I don't want to just go and say we need this money. I want to show that we have continued to work on things. This is just a money ask. We're really doing a lot of work in North Carolina. And so that was the purpose of having the couple things that we were really focusing on that we can add value to. And you'll see this is just a draft, but below the kind of one pager, we have the potential proposed legislation that we've been looking at. I'm going to start with the easiest one first because we had already talked about that. And it's not really actually language, it's just supporting the North Carolina Forced Marriage Initiative Coalition. And so we're just going to be saying we're in support of that. We don't need to do additional language. And the commission talked about that in the last meeting. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go up. The next thing is adding language to the human trafficking statute 1443.11. And generally, the committee has discussed this. It would just give the prosecutors an additional tool in their belt. And I wanted to run this by you guys because Jasmine and the committee talked about it, generally supports adding it, but Angelica and Jasmine were not able to join us in the last meeting, and they're a part of the committee. And they had brought up the issue of adding this language could potentially be racially, have a racially disparate impact. And so I wanted to give the floor to them since they were not able to be at the last meeting, if they have anything to add. But I will say, Angelica and Jasmine, we were working with Sarah Byrne on this specific language, and she kind of did some background information around it. And she did look at the Human Trafficking Institute and their data with the convicted buyer defendants, and 78% of those were white, 16 were black, in comparison to the convicted non-buyer defendants, which 72% were black and 24% were white. So just adding patronize without also adding increasing penalties or easing the state mens rea, we thought was a good kind of in-between place. And so I just wanted to give you the opportunity to discuss if you would like.
Understanding to see the language we're talking. Pull up what Christine sent.
So it's at the end, and it just adds the word patronize.
I can't get it. Christina, one pager, right? Running.
Correct. It is labeled one pager, and it is it starts at the bottom of page 3.
It's slowly opening again. A person commits the offense of human trafficking when the person knowingly or in reckless disregard of the consequences of their action recruits, entices, harbors, transports, provides, patronizes, or obtains by any other means with the intent to that the other person be held. Okay.
Sorry, y'all, I had to step away from my desk and I was pulling up the document that Christine sent. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I that's the bottom line. Yeah, I think it's fine too. I think you're right that this is a middle ground. I think my initial reaction again was to I was concerned about the implications, as you said. But I think that adding this language here is appropriate to the existing statute, and we'll have to see what happens.
Okay. Great. So then that's the first two. And the final one is the loophole that we discussed. I can't remember if it was at the last meeting or if it was at the meeting before that, that brought before us. And we have been working a lot on this language. Danielle has really headed up a lot of it. And we had some initial language. We went back and forth with Cheryl from the School of Government. The committee looked at it, and we had what we thought was pretty good. And then we brought in some of the family lawyers that we could speak with, and then they were concerned that this change would potentially have unintended consequences for pro se litigants who, I'll just give you the example, the grandparent who is trying to get custody of the grandchild, and what that would potentially mean for the pro se litigants. And so we've kind of gone back and forth. All that to say, we do not have a final completed version of what this language would look like. We certainly don't want to go try to fix something and then create 3 other problems once we've fixed this small issue. And so last week I spoke with Libby, our former chair of the commission, and one of her family attorneys, and they had suggested a couple of changes, some of which I thought were really good. A couple I thought were great, but I don't know if we would actually be able to accomplish those or not. And so the language, this is now, I'm not sure what page it's on, but we're talking about the first proposed legislation under 50-13.1. And this is under A1. So we added having to, let's see, if you've been convicted, having to disclose that. And then the language is underlined in the document. In addition, notwithstanding any other provision of law, any person instituting an action or proceeding for custody who has been, we have taken out granted and just put in denied, so that it would just alert that if you have been denied custody. And we have added in denied custody of any minor child in the last 10 years. So that would remove the situation of a grandparent who potentially lost custody of their own child 30 or 40 years prior, as the family law attorneys thought that would not be relevant if it was not recent. Added Chapter 50B action, which helps adjust the issue with the DSSS, so it limits it to a 50B action. Any jurisdiction shall disclose the filing of such an action or proceeding in the pleadings. One of the big things that the family law attorneys had suggested was that they think that this could actually be addressed through an AOC form that you would be filling out, as opposed to fixing it through legislation. There was some language, and Danielle, I don't know if you want to chime in on this, that we talked about a form being promulgated by AOC. I don't know. I haven't talked to the committee about this yet, if that's what we want it to read or not. And so we're not where I wanted to be, which was I'd like the commission to look at this and approve the language, and then we would be ready to go. But that is still, I don't have an answer on that as to whether we want to include that or not. And I would love to hear folks' opinions if you feel strongly about this.
So just for if I may, Madam Chair, for clarification, Caitlin, I got a little bit confused on it sounded like at the very end of that, you said this language may not be necessary because it could be resolved through a form with AOC, but maybe I extrapolated too much.
A piece of the language. So the part where it would be, in addition, notwithstanding, that paragraph right there that starts in A1 that goes through willful failure to make the required disclosures. So that piece would not be necessary if we had a form through AOC. The concern that the family law attorneys have is if you have a pro se litigant, they don't know that this exists, and there is no form for them to be clued in that they would have to make this disclosure. So a grandparent goes to get custody of a grandchild, and they're not aware that this statute exists. Now all of a sudden they're facing perjury issues because of they were just trying to do the right thing because they need to take custody of their child for school purposes and medical care. And I'm probably not doing that even remote justice because I'm not in family law, but that was their main concern with this. And if you had a form, it would be like, okay, check the box, let's go through. And then it would at least notify them.
Yeah. Caitlin, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, please do.
Sorry, you froze for a second. I wasn't sure if that was a no or a freeze.
It's a please do.
So I don't think the notion was ever that this could be done on an AOC form without legislation.
That's right.
AOC is not going to put anything in a form that's not part of the statute.
Right.
So I think the notion was they felt like a form would be helpful in implementing this legislative change so that pro se litigants that was really just a means of making sure pro se litigants are aware of the requirement. So having a checkbox or something like that on a form that would say, I have not been denied custody or I have been denied custody.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Yes. I probably messed that up in trying to explain that to you, Pam. Yes.
And Danielle.
Sorry, my other question, and maybe you just hadn't gotten to this yet, is I wasn't sure what the thinking was behind taking out the sentence about perjury, which I'm not in favor of or opposed to at this point. I'm just not sure I understand what the thinking was to striking it. I do know that the judge who originally brought this to the commission's attention felt like perjury was an insufficient penalty, and she thought there needed to be more significant penalties for failing to disclose this. I think we, as a legislative committee, decided that we thought perjury was a sufficient punishment for willful failure, but I didn't know
a good middle ground. Yeah. In putting that language, I just wanted it to be able to prompt me as to what their suggestions were from the family law side. It is, again, not final language as to what it would actually look like. It was just to show that there's still a varied opinion on what the final version of this should look like. I think the idea that something does need to be done is there, just as to how to do it, I think is, in my opinion, still up in the air.
So I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand, Caitlin. So you're saying the family lawyers didn't think that that perjury was an appropriate punishment there, or maybe more significantly that they were concerned that unknowing pro se litigants would stumble into that?
Yes, they wanted to take that. They wanted to take it out. I can go back and look and see specifically what she said.
Because I think that's why we included a mens rea requirement of willful.
Right.
By just kind of catching poor innocent pro se folk who don't know.
Exactly. I do think she addressed it, but now I can't find.
Okay, and it's not, we don't need to get hung up on it if it's not at your fingertips.
They were just concerned that it would, I mentioned the willful part, but they just thought that it was, so what is willful? That it was, that it should be taken out. I think it's a good common ground, but I do want to bring it before the committee and have them look at it and vote on it before we finalize what the language would look like. Do you have anything else you want to add, Danielle?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Danielle, I was just wondering if you could just speak to the feasibility of AOC doing a form like that, or adding something like that to a form.
Well, I think that's a complicated topic right now because of e-courts and the move to the integrated case management system. I mean, there is a forms freeze in place right now, but there are exceptions if it's a legislative change or something that is legislatively mandated. So it would not be, I mean, every form we have to change kind of slows down and interferes with ICMS, but if it's in a statute and we have to accommodate it, we will accommodate it.
Got it.
So this is where we are. I do want to address the issue, but as to the exact language that we will include, I think it is still very much so up in the air. I don't really know, since our next meeting is not until February, Christine and Jennifer, if the committee can finalize what we want this language to look like at our next meeting in January, is there a way we could send it to the full commission to vote on before the meeting in February? I don't know how that works with public records or public notice requirements.
We have done this on a couple of occasions where we've had to vote on like 1 or 2 items before the next regularly scheduled meeting. And I don't mean to speak for Christine because she would be the one responsible for setting it up, but it's possible. I mean, it is certainly possible to just, have a quick conference call or have a quick call to approve something like this. And Christine, I'm sorry if I spoke out of turn there.
No, that's great. We could definitely call a special meeting and this be the only agenda item, and it would be pretty quick to video in. We would public notice it and still follow all of the public notice requirements, but we could do that. And I did want to say also, committees, we haven't ever formalized whether or not the committee as a whole needs to vote on certain things or just come to a consensus for it to go to the full commission. So that's something to consider too, as to whether you could send this around among the committee for feedback. We could hold a special meeting really quick for them if there does need to be a vote, or maybe the email communications could move you forward.
My guess is we're probably going to need the committee meeting itself to sort through what we think is the best options. There would appear to be some differing opinions on it. And I don't want to create more issues, but I do want to address it. And so coming to what I think is a good compromise, I think might require some discussion. Would you agree with that, Danielle?
Oops, sorry. I was looking at our bylaws to see about email voting, and I didn't hear what you said, Caitlin. Please repeat.
No, that's okay. I do think that the committee is going to need a meeting that we will need to be able to discuss what we think is a good compromise for what the language looks like. I don't think the committee is going to be able to look at the language and approve something without significant discussion, as I think there's some varying opinions on what we think would address it and not create more unintended consequences.
I agree.
Okay, yeah. So then that would mean we could send something out to the commission after our January 21st meeting.
That sounds good. Would it be your preference for the commission to approve the other items on here, the funding request and items 2 and 3, and hold off on item number 1? Is that what you would?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I would like that. So then we can just address item 1 and what that language looks like, and the rest is ready to go.
Okay. Are you ready to move forward on that, or did you have anything else you wanted to discuss?
No, that's it. I'm
Okay.
ready to move forward with it.
Okay, then I'll open it up to the commission. What we are asking for is approval on the $500,000 recurring funding request, as well as approval for legislative items 2 and 3. Does anyone have any questions or comments on any of those items? I will entertain a motion for approval.
This is Dina. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks. Have a second? Thanks,
Second.
Pam. Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Dr. Bernard? Caitlin Brooks?
I'm assuming that I can as chair, but I approve it, yeah.
Pam Cashwell?
Yes.
Tammy Harris?
Yes, approve.
Dina Joy?
Yes.
Jasmine McGee?
Yes.
Mark Nichols?
Yes.
Caitlin Ryland?
I have to abstain from the vote on legislative proposals due to our funding.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Suzanne Smith?
Yes.
DA West?
Approve.
Angelica Wind?
Yes.
Okay, that's you approved unanimously. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Legislative Committee. I'm glad that we have at least those items moving forward, and hopefully in January we'll resolve this last issue. Okay, we will move on to a report from the Public Safety Committee. Mark Nichols, you're up.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you. And exciting to be here in the month of December. Can you believe that? We've been doing quite a bit, trying to anyway, through a pandemic, and we're still moving forward. So I certainly want to thank everyone for supporting me and my team and everybody that I work with. But it's been exciting. So, one of the biggest things that we talked about early on in the public safety arena is, and always knew as a trooper, how do you get to the root of the problem? And one of the biggest ways we can do that is through education, right? And education and enforcement always go hand in hand. But one of the things is through awareness and public safety awareness training. So with that, I'll kind of highlight some of the things that we've done here over the last quarter, basically. And that was to set up some kind of outreach for law enforcement. And thanks to Christine and her staff, and I want to brag on a lot of folks right quick. I really believe in teamwork and some of the neat things that we've done. But through the Department of Justice, the Justice Training Academy, Trevor Allen and his team have done a phenomenal job setting up some podcasts for us. And they invited us to come along and be part of some awareness training for law enforcement that anyone actually could tune in to the podcast and listen to it. It's very educational. We go through the whole scenario of who we are and what we're trying to do, what we're doing as a commission, what we're doing statewide for law enforcement actions, how to report crimes, some of the trends and some of the things that we're hearing and seeing across the state. And that's just the beginning. And then it went into other opportunities for us through podcasts. So I know DA West and his faithful team of talented folks, attorneys down there in law enforcement, will be also involved in the podcast that they're going to be doing here in the near future. And also some of the reviewing some of the cases across the state that resonates good with law enforcement. So between just having that outreach and for our law enforcement folks, that's the way to, we think, to advance some of our training and to get the word out and to share things. And the neat thing about the Justice Academy and the relationship through Trevor's group is we're able to be involved in some of the training that will take place in the near future and some of the things that we're seeing. So from the SBI side, I'd like to commend Carl Wall and his team for doing a phenomenal job. Madam Chief, I can't brag enough about what they're doing and their outreach and the things that they're trying to do during the pandemic to keep the enforcement team moving, but mainly to educate and still speak on behalf of the Sheriff's Association and other events that they're doing. So very proud of that group and DPS for all the talent that we have there. They're helping as well. You know, some of the things we talked about in the near future, what we're going to be doing is, and that's what's so important for the funding that we seek through the General Assembly. We've got to have the finances to move this commission forward. And regardless of what we think, I know a vaccine's forthcoming. We're excited about it, but realistically, it's going to be quite a while before we get it out to the public. So we see these kind of educational podcasts, forums, webinars, Teams meetings, whatever, taking place for the near future for probably the next 6 months. So we got to have funding to continue our work. Some of the things that we've done with the WRL group, with our videos that we formed, all require funding. And we're going to continue to build on training. We're going to continue to build on our education pieces and our outreach. And we want to be able to reach everyone across the state that wants to tune in. So I think this is the way of the future for us for the next at least 6 months. We are starting to plan our training again and looking at when we can get folks together in reality for a actual face-to-face meetings for training. And we're probably looking sometime after mid-July to try to be able to do that. But across the state, we're doing a lot of good things. We are communicating with other states. We're getting best practices, ideas from other states as well. We still are looking at ways to adopt a data base in our state that we can actually track or provide information from one law enforcement officer to another in the state or out of state through some kind of nexus. That's been challenging, but we'll continue to look at the best solutions and ways to move that forward. So those are some of the things that we're doing. I know I wrapped it up really quick in a nutshell, but do you all have any questions that I can try to answer for you? Christine, did I miss anything that is on the agenda that I couldn't think of anything else, but some real positive work. And like I said, this is strange times, but we're moving everything forward, and the commission I'm very proud of that we're continuing to move our efforts forward every day, and each committee is working very hard. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. You all are doing a great job. And I mean, just everyone, not just commission related, but everyone that I come across, whether it's, involved professionally or personally, it's amazing what we have figured out how to do in a pandemic, how to do things virtually. And, I'm so glad that no one told us in March how long we were going to have to do this. But I feel like now, at least that since we've gotten to this point, if you tell me that in July things might start looking different, we can work with that. We can make plans for the future. But you're right, we can't continue to do all of these projects without funding. I think it is important to note, like what we're trying to do here is show what we have done, really to make our case for we really need these things to continue, and this is really important, and it's all a team effort. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Well, thank you, and you're welcome. And like I said, we'll continue to look at trends, ways, and report back out. I am looking at national opportunities for us to be involved in some activities. So I'll report back if the things turn positive for us in that direction.
Thanks, Mark. Anyone have any other questions or comments from the public safety perspective? Okay. Thanks, Mark. Dr. Bernard was not able to join us this morning, but my understanding is that he sent Christine some notes about the work of the Public Health Committee. So, Christine, I'll turn it over to you for that.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so yes, the basic update from Dr. Bernard and the Public Health Committee, just to review a little bit, of course, they have been looking at the feasibility study done a couple of years ago by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And it was referencing training for healthcare professionals across the state and what training might be needed or would be needed and how to roll that out. So the committee has spent a lot of time actually reviewing existing healthcare training material out there and comparing those and discussing. Ultimately, the committee decided that, you know, there are positives and negatives from going with those kind of models. And one of the negatives is that it would not include any North Carolina specific information. And so they decided to just kind of take a shot at developing our own training for healthcare professionals, and they are actually in the final stages of that, kind of finalizing some different case vignettes and material related to the laws and reporting of abuse or neglect. And so the plan is that that material would get finalized hopefully this month, and then the committee would review it and give feedback one last time. And then towards the end of January, Nancy has actually set up a training with Charlotte AHEC that does primarily target healthcare professionals. So our hope is that the committee would be able to pilot it there and kind of give it a try and see what they think of it. If the committee does approve it, then they would then move on to discussing whether or not there'd be support for mandating such a training, or whether it would be possible to roll that training out across the state without a mandate. So that's kind of where they are now. He's hoping to have a meeting set up in early January, but of course, Dr. Bernard is pretty busy right now. So we'll see if by January he's freed up any for that. So any questions I can try to answer on his behalf, or?
I know it's been a big push to try to get all this together, and I know there's been a lot of people working behind the scenes on this, so I'm excited about it. And hopefully, like you said, we can start talking to all the stakeholders involved and get their support for something like this, because as we've seen, just pushing for a mandate without support kind of at the grassroots level is probably not a great idea. So I'm excited about that, and I thank Dr. Bernard and the Public Health Committee for their work on that. Okay, that is it for our committee report. So Nancy, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and call you up for your presentation on the training survey and training plan.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm really happy to be here today to share the results of a needs assessment that we conducted in September through an OVC grant in consult with a researcher from NC State. And I tested my screen share, so let me see if I can get it up there. I have a brief overview of what is actually a really rich and full and dense report. I won't weigh us down with all of the results, but I did want to share what I thought were some of the intriguing findings. So let me do that. Okay. I'm blocking my own screen here, but this was the Training and Technical Assistance Grant that, as I said, was funded by some of the OVC monies that Christine was able to obtain prior to even my arrival on the HTC staff. And we conducted the survey in September in order to do a broad needs assessment of statewide partners and players in the anti-human trafficking field. Our population was anyone who was on the HTC listserv. So that numbered about 1,000 people once we gleaned from the list and we had accurate, it also helped us to clear up our listserv. And we got a response rate of about 232 respondents, which is almost, so 23%. A norm when doing these kinds of surveys online is about 30%. So we were reasonably happy with that response rate. What was interesting to me is that the majority or the highest number of respondents were parole officers, well, probation, parole. People self-identified. They self-identified their profession and they self-identified their job title. And sometimes those seemed to coincide and sometimes they didn't. But parole officers, people who self-identified as advocates, and law enforcement. And I was thrilled that we had a good response with parole officers because these folks, probation, parole, work closely with vulnerable communities and vulnerable individuals. And I think that I at least didn't have a really good sense of what their needs might be and their capacities around training. So I think we were able to tap into a sample that will help us moving forward to be able to address those kinds of needs. Respondents represented almost 50 counties, but the concentrations, no surprise, I guess, were Cumberland, Mecklenburg, and Wake. Very interesting to me was that 43% of the respondents self-identified as beginners in the field of human trafficking. Therein lies the need for training. So we've got work to do. Demand for training and technical assistance was high, but demand for training was consistently reported as greater than the demand for TA. In fact, about 21% of respondents said that they were good with technical assistance. They were happy on continuing on their own and did not put in a request for technical assistance, but most folks wanted both technical assistance and training. We started off by asking respondents what they identified as service gaps or gaps in service provision, and we defined service provision very broadly. There were 15 areas. Again, as I said, we contracted with a researcher from NC State who's a sociologist, and we did a few prototypes of the iterations of the survey instrument. We had some outside experts look at it, and then we decided to define service broadly, and again, let people determine whether they were a service provider or not, rather than imposing categories on them. So it may be indeed that some parole and probation officers saw themselves as service providers. They overwhelmingly identified community awareness as the #1 gap in service provision across the state. And we conducted the survey in September, and we have to remember too that what the summer looked like, what the pandemic has looked like in terms of awareness and mythology, factual information that's out in public media, in the press, in communities around human trafficking. So I think there's an historical element here, perhaps, where people were responding to that need for accurate information to get out there. And then prevention, primary prevention was also highly recognized as a need. Outreach to victims and survivors, we were attempting to address some of that with some of the other projects that we did, and Mark referred to one. I think Christine's going to show you some videos when she reports regarding outreach directly to victims and survivors, and then shelter. So these are the top 4 gaps. We wanted to know what people thought of the terrain before we asked them what their particular needs were. So remember that many people said that they were new to the field, and yet 11% of respondents who identify as beginners are conducting trainings. That's interesting. 64% of intermediates and 93 thankfully, of people who consider themselves experts or advanced respondents or conducting training. So of the probation officers that responded, 93% said they are not doing trainings. Only 7% said that they did. Most of the people who said that they were doing trainings are affiliated with faith-based organizations. That was the number one group, or social workers, attorneys, law enforcement, or educators. The faith-based community is doing a lot of the training, as we know, but now we have some documentation. Their topics were the generalized human trafficking 101, and then prevention and sex trafficking of minors. So we see a concordance with some of the gaps and some of the training, but there are also areas of need that aren't being addressed. The top 3 reported audiences for these trainings were community members. Remember that we said that community awareness was identified as the greatest gap in service provision, and yet that's the number 1 audience. So sometimes I think as an insider, it can feel as if North Carolina started with information, that we've done a really great job with awareness, and I do believe that we have. But obviously, people who are working in the field see a tremendous need, an ongoing need, because it's not a static field. It's not when we're dealing with human beings and systems. We're always in motion, and so there's a community. I believe that a training for community members is going to be ongoing, and it will be iterative, and it will change over time. Law enforcement. Remember that law enforcement is conducting a lot of the trainings, and they are perhaps doing training within, and then service providers. One of the lowest groups that was identified as participating in trainings were people with limited English proficiency. And so as only 18% of the trainings were conducted by those respondents. So there's a need there too. Now this may look a little bit confusing because we just talked about some of the different arenas in which training is occurring. When we asked about specific training needs, we grouped them into 11 arenas, and they're fairly broad. There are subsets to each of these 3 that you see here. I'm not delving into them in this presentation, but if anyone's interested in the report, they can read the 100 and something pages if they would like to learn a little bit more about these subsections. But basically, the 3 primary categories of training need were service provision, again, very broad, organizational development, how do I increase capacity within my organization, and then what we're calling intersectional training, so intersectionalities of human trafficking and such things as racial equity, access, substance abuse. They're all delineated in the report, but those were the top 3. These are some of the subsets that you can see. Again, more specifically, the introduction, there's still a tremendous need. 80% of people requested more information about NC laws and policies. We know, again, thanks to our great legislative committee and others, these are also always changing. I think SB 199, we've had some wonderful presentations here with Squally, and NCCAT has done some presentations, and others. This is an ongoing point of education and training. Organizational readiness, as I already mentioned, and then in terms of actual industries in which trafficking may occur, begging and panhandling, sales crews was the highest requested arena of training. And again, we know that the Labor Task Force and the folks in the Triad, World Relief, are doing great work in this area. So I think we're moving forward in all of these areas, but again, there's lots of room for ongoing education and training. Oops, I flipped my screen, sorry. So the technical assistance needs, number one, 79% of people said that they would like some technical assistance. Again, this is less than the numbers who said that they would like ongoing training, which was more in the 90s. And the number one request was for assistance building RRTs, multidisciplinary teams, task forces, and coalitions. In other words, how do we work together to address human trafficking? Comparison of organizations and programs and policies to the human trafficking standards. As we may recall, we recently published the standards for direct service providers, and what we need to do now is work with communities, agencies, and organizations to develop the means to meet those standards. And then thirdly, how to engage for survivors, how to build a survivor network, survivor leadership, and to really give action to the voice of survivor centering in our work. We're learning how to do that. So what we're hoping is that the results will inform our training and technical assistance efforts in 2021 at all levels. And I did not include the national level, but of course we belong to the compendium, and there are some conference opportunities that I've been able to participate in, to present at, and hoping to do in the future, either virtually or in person. The goal is to always work in partnership with local organizations, people on the ground who are doing the work. And there seems to be a need to train the trainers. If we have 11% of folks who are doing training are beginners to the field, and almost a median number of trainers are identifying as intermediate, well, we need ongoing work to make sure that, again, this field that's always in motion is accessible to people and they feel competent when they're out engaging with communities and doing the work. Now, the symposium. Christine may address this more fully, but the goal is to actually get together in person in October and meet, talk, discuss, and learn. So that's the idea. If we can't, you know, Mark, you were hopeful 6 months maybe. I'm going to share that hope that by the end of summer at least we'll be able to start seeing each other face to face, because as we know, the training virtually has come a long way even since March. But at least for me, there's nothing like the networking, the partnering, the engaging that can happen when people are in the same physical space. But we will use the results from this study to help establish, guide, and direct some of those in the coming year. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. And I share your optimism that by October, we will be able to kind of realistically talk about doing something like this. You know, I thought all of your slides were really interesting, and really, I think the most surprising thing to me was how many people self-identified as kind of still being at the beginner level of understanding the issue. And then, again, to what you said about 11% of the trainers also identified as at the beginning level. So you're right. We do have a lot of work to do. But was there anything that really was surprising to you about the survey, or any one big takeaway?
I think that's the takeaway, that because this field is emergent still, and the movement is rapidly growing. And probably too, again, this is not an academic survey, right? So it's a needs assessment. But I think there are historical factors where all of the press and the news of this summer probably increased interest and attention to human trafficking in general among both professionals and communities. And so we're at an optimal moment to capitalize on that and create trainings that are accurate and reliable. So for me, yeah, I was struck by the fact that 11% of people identified as newcomers to the field and we're doing training. My guess is that's low because I would think that most people would not want to convey that. So training the trainers is, I think, going to be a big part of the work that we do in the coming year.
Exactly. And like you said, I hate the thought of capitalizing on something that is inherently negative, but you're right. I think over the past couple of years, it is just this issue has been so prominent in the media for various reasons that I think the number of people out there who can say they are not aware of the issue at all or have never heard of it is really, really low now. So there is opportunity to take advantage of that kind of general basic awareness of what's going on.
And I think that when 79% of the folks out that as a gap, we need to delve a little deeper, but I believe that the gap is in accurate, reliable information, awareness versus just a globalized sense of human trafficking.
Right, which often is full of myths. And I know that we're working hard to try to dispel some of those things.
Yes.
Commission members, do you all have any questions or comments for Nancy?
Hi, Nancy. I just have one. This is very, very impressive. And I think it's really interesting going forward to plan the training goals for the commission. One thing that stood out for me was the high percentage of parole officer respondents. There may be a training opportunity. Under state law, there are actually 2 requirements for parole officers to notify individuals of their expunction-related remedies. One has to do with people that are convicted under 18 years of age, and the other one has to do with when people are convicted of solicitation charges. And I think there might be a training opportunity there, particularly with the solicitation charges. Making sure that people are notified about any human trafficking or other expanded remedies for collateral consequences of criminal convictions. And I don't know, I just think that there may be some, like a training opportunity there based on the statutory requirement under state law.
Thank you for bringing that up. And absolutely. I mean, that's something perhaps we can discuss further, or other members of the commission, if anything has been highlighted to you here, I would be really interested in pursuing that with you. Thank you, Caitlin.
Making sure that when they're advising them of these opportunities, they're also advising them of where to go for free assistance to do that, or providing the appropriate pro se materials.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you, Caitlin. Does anyone else have questions for Nancy?
Pam, I think you were trying to jump in because I want to jump in after you. So sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So the probation officer, at hearing that, my ears perked up as well. And I thought that I heard you say, Dr. Hagan, that when you made the comment about probation officers, that it had to do with them conducting, I thought was the word you used, conducting training. And so I had questions about that. But to Caitlin's point, I am happy to help facilitate where it's not probation officers either way. But if the issue is providing them training, then state probation officers, we can certainly, there's a pathway toward any improvement for that training. But what tricked me up was that it sounded like you were saying that they responded they were not conducting training, which I would agree. They're not conducting any sort of human trafficking training because they need that training themselves. So maybe you can clarify that.
You heard that that 93.1% of probation officers said that they were not conducting any kinds of training, and 7% said that they were, which is actually I believe, and I would have to look at the raw data again, but I believe that is the group that is doing the least amount of training. And to me, that speaks of a need to train the trainers. And so would be delighted to ally with you or learn from you and Caitlin or anyone else, other commissioners that would be able to help in that arena. So that was reassuring to me. If they're identifying as beginners, or if they don't have the training, they're not doing the training in that particular sample. And I see it as an opportunity for us.
That's helpful. That's something we can push toward.
Jasmine, did you have a follow-up on that?
I think Pam got the main points there. I think there's opportunity there.
Okay.
It's exciting. I tend to be a qualitative sort of researcher, but it sometimes is really, really helpful to have the numeric data to give us an idea of the scope and what's really going on.
Yeah, I'm a numbers person, so looking at data like that means a lot to me. Anyone else have anything? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And I'm excited about what this brings for 2021.
As am I. Thank you very much.
Okay. We will move on to Christine for her Executive Director report. Christine, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, okay, so the last meeting that we had in October ran quite over. We didn't have enough time to show everything that we wanted to. And so this meeting, we thought we'd take the opportunity to try to expand on that. And the first thing I wanted to do with that actually was show one, if not both, the contract we had over the summer with Governor's Crime Commission, the grant money that came in. We were able to create 3 videos. We played the law enforcement version for you last time. And so there are 2 more. And I want to start by playing, and hopefully it works, one of the videos that is just general human trafficking awareness. And so I'm going to play that now. Let's see.
Human trafficking is real in North Carolina. We have to do our part to fight it. We need to learn about it and understand that it doesn't always look the way that we think it does. It's happening all around us, in our banks, in our grocery stores, in our neighborhoods. Today, we're going to dispel some common myths about human trafficking.
Under North Carolina law, human trafficking is minors involved in any commercial sexual activity, adults induced into commercial sexual activity through force, fraud, or coercion, children and adults induced to perform labor or services through force, fraud, or coercion.
Human trafficking is the forced coercion of individuals to engage in forced labor, sex trafficking or other services like farming, domestic servitude, that sort of thing. And it is more prevalent in North Carolina than most people realize. And in fact, for a number of years, North Carolina has been in the top 10 in the country for human trafficking cases.
There are many ways that traffickers can control their victims beyond the use of physical force. There is the emotional manipulation, there's the isolation, there is also the confiscating passports, withholding money, and restricting their ability to travel freely.
Typically, traffickers are really, really good, unfortunately, at identifying victims who are vulnerable. That can be someone who is homeless, who has been the previous victim of abuse, who is suffering from some sort of substance abuse.
These individuals are very, very talented at getting inside individuals' heads and telling them who they are and what they want in a way that those victims believe that they have met their best friend, they met their love for life, they're going to be married, and they're going to be taken care of. And these individuals have only one goal, and that is for that victim to make money for that trafficker.
Many people believe that only women or girls can be victims of trafficking. This is not true. Traffickers can be your family, your romantic partner, your boss, your friends.
There are people that we know, people that we trust, because oftentimes human traffickers exploit vulnerabilities, emotional vulnerabilities. It tends to be someone that the victim knows.
Trafficking impacts every gender, every race. Trafficking does not discriminate.
Victims often do not ask for help. They feel ashamed, they feel frightened, they feel trapped, they feel like they are stuck in their situation, and some of them even feel like somehow they've been convinced that they've brought their situation on themselves, when in fact they have not, hence they're victims.
In many cases, the victims may think they're in love with the trafficker. In many cases, they admire the trafficker. And in many cases, they've been in this organization so long that it's all they know. It's how they're given material things, food, clothing, whatever they may need. So they'll be very reluctant to provide information about the trafficker. They'll be very reluctant to admit they're in danger and reluctant to seek help.
The North Carolina Human Trafficking Commission was created by law in 2013 as the statewide organization to combat this problem in North Carolina.
Well, the commission works to really be that clearinghouse between all of the different disciplines that are necessary to have an effective response to trafficking in North Carolina. So both the law enforcement response, but also the service provider response, and really trying to elevate the idea of multidisciplinary response, because you really do need a variety of expertise to respond effectively to human trafficking in North Carolina.
Sex trafficking, labor trafficking, all forms of human trafficking are happening right here in our neighborhoods in North Carolina. It's happening in your backyard. It's happening around your workspace. We should all be on the lookout for it because it's happening all around us.
If you think that you see human trafficking, the most important thing you can do is call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, or you can text Be Free. There's someone here to help.
Okay, so I hope everyone could hear that okay. I might have said it backwards though. This was actually the first video that we created, and we really were trying to address some of the myths and feature the commission at the same time. Of course, trying to create this video in a short time frame with a pandemic, we ended up just using interviews from commissioners and putting that message together. And so the second video is the law enforcement one we showed last time. And then the third video I'm going to pull up now. And it actually is just kind of a general human trafficking awareness, and uses a voiceover and images instead of interviews to complete this. And so hopefully you'll be able to see the text okay. When I'm playing the video, it says the text may be blurred, but rest assured on the ones on the website, it is clear. I'm going to get this ready. Pause. Okay, share again. Here we go.
Trafficking is real in North Carolina. Across the state, every day, right here in the cities, suburbs, and rural areas of North Carolina, people are being exploited and trafficked for sex, labor, and domestic servitude. It's happening in towns like yours and could even affect people you know. Kendra left home and needed a place to stay. She was approached by a nice-looking guy who flattered her with praise and offered her a place to live. He bought her clothes and gifts, yet all the while preying on her vulnerabilities. One day he insisted she pay him back by performing sex acts for money at a highway truck stop. When she resisted, he threatened to kick her out, leaving her without a place to stay. Lynn May met a person in a chat room who told her she could earn good money as a masseuse in a massage parlor and even offered to help her. At first, the woman was very nice. She gave her bus fare to Charlotte and a job. Lynn May had to work long hours for very little pay. The woman demanded a percentage of Lynn May's salary and told her that she must pay back all her expenses, threatening to go after her family if she resisted. Miguel needed money to support his family and was having difficulty finding a job. His uncle in Asheboro promised him good employment at a large restaurant. Upon arrival, his uncle requested his work visa and cell phone, telling Miguel that he would keep it safe for him. His uncle took money for his room and board and forced Miguel to work long hours for much less than minimum wage. He refused to return his visa and threatened to have him deported if he complained or did not continue to work. Each of these stories is an example of human trafficking. No one should be forced, deceived, or pressured to perform work or sex acts. Human trafficking is occurring right now in North Carolina. Recognize the possible signs. Someone who does not have control of their passport or other identifying documents. A controlling romantic partner or sponsor who will not allow them to speak with anyone alone or who monitors their movements, spending, or communications. Persons living and working in isolated conditions, cut off from interaction with others. Working in dangerous conditions without proper safety gear or other protections. Working in a legitimate industry where workers may be pressured or forced to perform sex acts for money, such as adult entertainment or an illicit massage business. Someone who lives where they work or are transported by their employer between home and workspace. Having an older boyfriend or manager in the commercial sex industry. Being younger than 18 and engaging in sexual acts for something of value like shelter, food, drugs, or money. If you think you have witnessed human trafficking, or you are a victim of trafficking, call the Human Trafficking Hotline or text Be Free. Help is waiting.
Okay, so that is the second video. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that helped with this, everyone who interviewed and took the time out on very short notice. Angelica came a very long way to do this in person. And so we are so thankful for that. And I think that these videos, all things considered, will be very useful to us. And hopefully by the end of this week or early next week will be on our website for use by anyone that needs to use them or learn more about human trafficking and the commission. I am now going to switch to the PowerPoint. Yep. Okay, so you've kind of seen now, we do also have that we will be putting on the website two very short videos, a 15-second and a 30-second clip on human trafficking that will be up there as well. And then of course, 3 longer videos that we or 2 of which we just showed you. The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, and like I said, last meeting we touched on some of this, but did not quite get into showing you the way that we would have liked to. So we have finished the Human Trafficking Resource Directory for North Carolina, which is going to be kind of a living and changing document as programs and groups out there change. So much thanks to Madeline from Duke that helped us do this and get this launched. So our website does have this resource directory on there. Within it, it breaks out things like regional or rapid response teams, local task forces, coalitions. Oh, let's try sharing that again. Okay, there we go. Local coalitions, and then nonprofit organizations, and it even has a section on farm worker organizations and additional resources. So I'm going to try to go to that, see if it'll take me there. I might have to share a different screen, I think. Or it may not load. There we go. Okay, is that sharing? Probably not sharing, is it? Oh, it is? Oh, good. Okay. So here is our website, and this is the page that has the directory on it. You'll see here there's a disclaimer as well as on every page of the directory that says, you know, that we have placed organizations on this list, but obviously we don't have a way to vet or visit them. So we encourage people to do kind of their own recommendation, their own research on each entity. You can download the full guide. It's very long, but you can download it here. Important notes here kind of tells everyone that's looking at it. Some of the nonprofits are leveled by tiers. Like a tier 1 nonprofit would be an agency that their actual mission is human trafficking specific. A tier 2 might be an agency that has a funded program and staff for human trafficking, but their actual mission is something else. And so it breaks this down. Here, I probably go to it. And it tells you a little bit how you can search the directory by using the control find feature. It talks a little bit about terminology and definitions. And then, as you see here, the table of contents where we've broken out specific government agencies, state level nonprofit, coalitions, regional response teams. So you can click here and go and learn more about any of these that we've just collected some brief information on. I'm going to close that. So that is out there for the public. That's something we will continue to keep updated and working on internally here. So the other thing to show you in general in creating the directory, we also have kind of just made an actual resource library under the Human Trafficking Commission website. And so on that website, we have some of the material we developed over the summer, and quite a bit of that actually. We have a fact sheet that it really covers some of the myths of human trafficking as well as breaks out the definition. We have a fact sheet on sex trafficking, a fact sheet on labor trafficking. We have a half-page indicator card that's front and back, so it's not as big. We have a wallet card that gives the Polaris Hotline Commission website. And then we have a tray liner, something that could be used in, cafeterias, maybe that have trays where you go through and there's a liner on that tray, and it breaks out more about human trafficking as well. So all of this material is on the resource, in the resource library on our website. I will try to pull up so you can just see the front sheet of the. So these can be downloaded and printed. We also plan on printing a stock of them here. And yes, let's see. Handouts. So you'll see the resource library here where in the resource library is now the awareness signs and different languages those come in. We have a link on best practices and toolkits out there that we've put, our normal fact sheet that we always have used, and then these handouts. The library has the directory, the Speak Up and See materials that people can use on there to promote human trafficking through social media. The videos will all be listed on here that we've created, and then a link for other resources. But to go to some of these handouts, this shows you kind of the front page image of these handouts that we've created. We also have in here, we haven't tried this out ourselves, but a printable version of a human trafficking barcode label, because we know that Wake Med with Dr. Bernard and some other agencies have purchased their own chapsticks or hand sanitizers and then used a clear sticker to put on it that has, of course, the hotline number in this barcode. So it's something they can give a potential victim to say, you know, if you do change your mind or you need help, want help, reach out through this number. So that is here as well. And then you'll see these other materials. So we are pretty excited about that. We're also thankful to Jasmine and the Department of Justice. We've made kind of an overall victim handout that as soon as it's finalized will be put up here as well. And it really just highlights, you know, if you're a victim of domestic violence, sexual assault, or human trafficking, what you can do and where you can go, and has the Department of Justice logo on there as well. So yes, you can see all of that there on our website. I'll briefly talk about this too. One of the other projects over this summer, NCCAT in 2015 created a rapid response team toolkit. It's a wonderful toolkit with instruments in it. We wanted to get that toolkit updated if possible to include not just the rapid response or regional response teams, but also to include some information on task forces and coalitions. So if someone out there was trying to figure out what they want to start, they know they're starting a group multidisciplinary team effort, but they don't know whether they would classify as an RRT or a task force or a coalition, then this guide would help them do that and give them some possible tools and instruments to aid them in that. So NCCAT has, this update is in draft form, and we're really hoping to be able to work with them and get it finalized over the next couple of months, and then have it as well listed as a resource for the state. I'm going to come back to this, well, I'm going to talk about this one, but we may not actually be able to vote on anything. Let's see. So part of the training and technical assistance grant that we have with the Governor's Crime Commission was to contract with an individual or an entity out there to provide training and technical assistance across the state with us. Obviously, there's so much training and technical assistance needed, much of that Nancy just highlighted, that is almost impossible for just Nancy to do on her own. And so part of the grant was to contract with someone to help us accomplish some of these things. And so we have had to issue that out in a bid because, of course, it is a larger amount of a contract. And so I had hoped that we'd be able to vote on that now. It is still in procurement, and we have narrowed down who we'd like to work with. But it's not all solidified yet. And so I was hoping we might be able to vote on it contingently, but it seems like the safer thing may be for us to wait on that. So, so you will be seeing more about this, and we're looking forward to getting this work up and going and have someone out there that helps us and partners with us to get material and training out across the state. Okay, and so then I really cannot believe we're in December, but we are. I think we might be like 2 weeks away from Christmas right now, actually. But so January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. We are going to be looking at doing things a little different this January. You know, we normally have a press conference event where we have speakers and we bring it together as many people as we can to just push out that it is actually Awareness Month and ways that people can learn about human trafficking. Um, in Since we are in a state of emergency and a pandemic, we are not going to do a press conference. I have requested the proclamation and am waiting. I'm hoping that that can go through. I know that things are delayed quite a bit with all that's going on with COVID-19. So we do hope to get that by early January and be able to share it with the listserv and on the website and everywhere possible. Instead of the press conference, we thought we would try to do more creative things with social media platforms. You know, we've always had kind of a social media presence in January, and the communication folks here at AOC have done a wonderful job pushing out a daily message about human trafficking awareness. And so this time we are going to reach out to some different offices, some, of course, of you on the commission, to see if we can create a few very short videos that might be shared through social media. Of course, our chair would be one of those. And hopefully the Attorney General's office and maybe the governor's office, we'd be able to get some short videos made that can be shared and up on our website as well. And then maybe some quotes from the rest of you all that are commissioners, to have maybe a picture and a quote from you about what human trafficking awareness means, or a fact about human trafficking. So you'll be getting some emails from me in the next 2 weeks to kind of see if we can get some of that lined up and moving. The other thing that's great about the month of January that we're going to be able to do is the podcasts. So Mark mentioned that the North Carolina Justice Academy is in the process of recording. They usually do one podcast a month, but they have agreed to do one a week for us for the month of January. And so they've recorded the very first one. They record the next one will actually be with DA West and his team, where they will be talking about successful prosecutions of cases and how that happened and worked and what they've learned along the way. And so we think that will probably make 2 podcasts because there's so much material that can be covered from that. And then the 4th podcast with the Justice Academy on the last week, we've lined up the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Raleigh with a local police department. And so they are going to highlight the successful prosecution of a case that was recent within the last year and was identified actually through local police that identified the case after going out on a domestic violence call. And so so they'll walk through kind of how they identified the case, how they took the case to a federal level, and then some of the key elements they used for prosecution. So so we're really excited about those podcasts. We'll be able to share those links out with our email community and with the commission to share as well, and hopefully kind of put out some new material there in the month of January. So AOC, the Administrative Office of the Courts here, they are also launching a podcast in January, and they have asked that the commission be the first podcast to be featured, since it is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And so we are in communication with them now about getting that recorded and set up, and finding out kind of all the details that podcast would contain. So the other thing for the month of January, Nancy has 3 webinar trainings with Charlotte Ahek that she's lined up that we'll be announcing and giving the details soon. She also is doing 1 county level training on human trafficking herself in the month of January. So we'll have those events going as well. And if you have ideas or needs and for the month, or please let me know. But definitely on the website, the handouts and materials that are there, the videos, anything that you can use to promote it is much appreciated. And so I think that is my last slide. Yep. yeah, it looks like we're going to wait on voting on the procurement contract. And so if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, that's my report.
I do just have one question. What do you have any idea what the timeline is on the procurement approval for that?
I don't know for sure. Danielle, I know, has been trying to help me figure this out while we're meeting. Danielle, have you heard anything about how long that might be?
I don't. I think it's fairly close to being finalized, but I think it would be premature to vote on it in this meeting.
Absolutely, and thank you.
I was trying to reach our procurement folks while you all were talking, so I may have missed some context there, but.
Yeah, nope, I don't think so. I think that's perfect. We were hoping we could kind of get ahead and maybe contingently approve someone today, but it sounds like we have to wait. So that's okay though.
And that's fine. I don't want to do things out of order. I want to make sure we do everything the right way. So we will just wait on that, and it'll happen when it happens. Anyone have any other questions for Christine? Caitlin?
Chat, because, but maybe I missed it. How will the podcast be accessed or promoted?
Yes. So I probably just didn't go into enough details. Probably did not miss anything. But well, the Justice Academy, of course, has their own followers for the podcast, and so they can promote it internally there. They will also send me the links that I can send out to all of you and onto our email list. But of course, if you go into the podcast apps on your phone and search North Carolina Justice Academy, you can subscribe to them, and then you'll get notices as well when those come up. And I know that several of you on the commission have your own podcast or your own platforms as well that you push information out on. And so when I send that link and material out to you, if you want to share it through your own networks, please do, because we hope that, that this can be a training, some training content, not just for how to identify cases if you're in law enforcement, or some prosecution tips, but also just general awareness about how these cases are so complicated, how they can look so different. And I think it will be good tools that we have moving forward.
Any other questions for Christine? Okay. Christine, thank you. I have said this before, but especially in this year, you have worked so hard, and I appreciate everything that you have done for us. Mainly in terms of getting all this virtual stuff figured out and just keeping us moving along. You are invaluable. And Nancy also, and Danielle for keeping the legal wheels on the bus here. Appreciate that. I didn't hear what Danielle said, but.
I was just saying thank you. I'm not sure I keep the legal wheels on, but I appreciate the shout out.
I just have a couple of things just to wrap up the meeting today. I was going to mention Awareness Month, and Christine did a really good job of covering that. Again, it's been a hard year, but I think the situation has prompted us to be more creative in our thinking and how we do things. And I very much enjoyed participating in the press conference last year and in previous years, but I'm also excited that we can try different ways of getting our message out there. And I'm excited about participating in a podcast and just the other opportunities that are going to be available to us in January. I want to thank all of you for bearing with me for this year as chair. It has been a steep learning curve, big shoes to fill from Libby Coles, our former chair. So it's been a fun year. I'm excited to continue on next year, and part of that is just from my personal or from my professional situation here at Labor. We do have a new commissioner of labor who will be sworn in on January 1st. We are excited to welcome Commissioner-elect Josh Dobson. He is aware of the work of the Human Trafficking Commission, and I am excited to educate him more on what we do here. And I hope to invite him to attend our meeting, ideally in February, just to have him get to know you all and why the Department of Labor is represented on this commission. So I'm excited to introduce him to the Human Trafficking Commission and for you all to meet him. I think that is all I have. I'm happy to hear closing remarks from the commissioners. Happy holidays. Anyone want to discuss anything that is going on in your world?
Oh, I do. I wanted to let the commission know that the Task Force for Racial Equity is going to be issuing its report on Monday. So thanks everyone for your support through this short and arduous process since the summer. But we're excited to issue a report and hope to be able to talk with the commission in the coming months about contents of the report that may be relevant to the commission's work.
Short and arduous. I'm sure that is a great descriptive for what it was. I can't believe you all got that work done in such a short period of time. That's great.
Thank you.
And Jennifer, this is Billy. I was on the House Select Committee, and we should we have our last meeting Monday, and should also come out with our report soon on similar topic on equity and criminal justice reform and that sort of thing. So look for that report in the coming days or weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that with us, and we will be on the lookout for that too. I think Pam.
I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Jasmine. Part of the reason the thing got accomplished is because she worked her rear off along with some other DOJ staff, but certainly she was at the forefront and just did an incredible job of gathering, sifting through, writing, rewriting, working with various stakeholders to ensure people felt heard, editing. I mean, I just can't say enough about your great work on that, Jasmine. So thank you for that. I can, as an onlooker, I know how hard she worked. So
thank you, Pam. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Pam, for sharing that. Going once, going twice. I will.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. I hope you all get some rest.
Thanks. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Thanks, Mark.
Second.
All right. All in favor, let's just say aye.
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 Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Jennifer will go down in history as the only person who said 2020 was fun. Did you get that that was sarcastic?
Yes, yes. True, kind of. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, I had some fun this year.
I know, but a year ago when you said, yes, you were going to take on this chair role and give it a try, you had no idea.
Nobody did. Anybody who said they would do anything in 2020 had no idea what they were agreeing to.
True. Very good. Oh, good. Well, okay. Well, I think that went well.
Yeah, it was a good way to wrap up the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
I think so too. So I'm going to stop there. Yeah, so I know, can you think of anything else that you need? I know
that I have a couple of emails from you that I owe a response on. So I haven't, I just want to let, I haven't forgotten. We are in, I mean, I'm very, very incredibly thankful to have my job, but we are still going through a ton of transition as far as we do have 3 new staff people coming into the office. We have a couple of people leaving. We are doing a major office move. Not me. I mean, I'm staying in my place, but we are moving one of our divisions downstairs and another division upstairs. So basically, as I told you, I'm taking on the communications role. So my new communications staff is coming upstairs with me. And so we're shifting, in order to balance that out, we're shifting some people into their space. So trading spaces, we in the conference room, because it is by far the neatest, cleanest space, we have files and trash and shredding to be done everywhere.
oh wow.
I see somebody behind you.
Okay, apparently the live feed is still on, which is okay.
Oh well.
Let's see. I think that they have to stop that internally, but let's see.